Happy Friday, everyone. I'm Nick Slavik. I'm the proprietor of the Nick Slavik Painting and Restoration Company. I'm also the host of this show, Ask a Painter Live, where I use my over 2 decades of experience as a painter, craftsman, wallpaper hanger, restorationist, color advisor, historic consultant, to answer any of your questions. So, the reason I started this show is that I wanted to interact with homeowners and other pros. If there has ever been anything you've ever wanted to ask somebody who's devoted their life to this trade, ask it here. This is an open forum. There's a bunch of pro painters who watch this as well, and they chime in as well. It's a great interaction. If you've ever wanted to know anything about painting, how a pro does it, how you should do it, this is the place for it. So, today we're going to be talking about salvage doors, preserving those, some barred doors, and incorporating those into a lived-in house or a remodeled house. We're going to talk about Adirondack chairs, preserving those, different finishes for those. And then I received a couple questions about interior color choosing. And I'm going to go through a couple of my theories about how in open floor plans we can best use them. So, this last week was one of the best weeks of the year. It was the PDCA Expo, the Painting and Decorating Contractors of America. If you can say, as close to an epiphany about business as you can have, I had this last week here. The conversations I had, the stuff I've learned there, the people I met were just outstanding. And I came back with a full head of steam and am really going to do some different stuff with my business and all this other stuff. It's super exciting. I had the honor to be part of their industry debate there over lunch, which is always fun. It's a little bit humor, a little bit hyperbolic. It's great to interact with pros on a large stage like that. And also, the amazing honor that was bestowed upon me to teach a master's class to my fellow peers, which unbelievable. I had a blast. I had a room full of some of the best craftsmen in the United States, and I basically give a 2-hour treatise on painting cabinets that have already been varnished or lacquered or things like that. And I took away a few things with the interactions with the pros, and I hope the other people who sat in on that, 2 to 3 hour treatise that I gave took something away too. But I don't know that I've learned more technical knowledge in that couple hours than I have in the rest of my painting career. The interactions with guys who have been around the industry forever, between guys who are aggressive and young and learning the trade, and it's such a fun interaction. So I actually did the last Ask a Painter, number 38. After that treatise on cabinet finishing, I fired up this guy here, and we actually did a live interaction with some of the pros in that room. So if you guys are interested to see, inside the mind of craftsmen, that's sort of a good indication right there. So, first question from Ryan Stika, a local New Prague guy here. My next project is turning the vintage door on the left into a pantry door, and I included these in a post through my personal page. Ryan sent me some pictures of the salvage entry door that he wants to use, and also the barn doors. We would like to keep the old paint, but it's chipping off in a couple spots from what appears to be water damage. We don't mind the chipped and peeling paint, but don't want it to get any worse. Is there something we can apply to lock the rest in place without changing the appearance drastically? Now, he showed 2 separate things. One was a white painted entry door, antique door, and the other one was some pretty weathered barn wood. 2 ways to go about this. If you don't mind the raw paint, the raw wood, things like that, what you can do is basically just remove any dirt, remove any grime, and just leave it like that. You can just hang it and do nothing. Now, if you actually want a surface you can clean, or if you're worried about the lead paint in it or oil paint in it and you want to encapsulate it, what you can actually do, and this is something I've done in the past, a combination of shop vacs, toothbrushes. You can kind of get in there and knock some of the dirt and dust loose from the tops and the bottoms and all the nooks and crannies. And while you have a toothbrush, you could be having the shop vac there and just kind of get it out of there. Another thing you can do is actually sort of just wash it down, not soak the door, because you don't want to get a bunch of bare wood wet. But if you basically take just a damp rag, you can get a lot of grime off these doors and actually turn them pretty good looking. If you want to seal it from there, 2 ways to go. If you don't mind not a glossy surface, but like a shine to it, like a satin oil varnish, any sort of marine varnish, any sort of really good oil interior varnish will work perfectly for that stuff. That will give you that sort of finished look. Now, if you have some peeling paint on there, and you're going to eventually, just through normal use, have it come off, What you can do is, this is a trick that I sort of learned over the years with restoring a bunch of this stuff, especially old picture frames and things like that. You can take a cotton rag, like the size of, maybe half of a t-shirt worth of cotton, ball it up in your hand, and you can actually rub it over the door, and a lot of the paint chips will fall off. A shop vac them up and clean them up after. You can certainly take a very, very depleted sanding sponge. If you have a fine grit sanding sponge that you use for a bunch of woodworking jobs, and it's almost smooth to the touch, almost no grit, you can go over that stuff, but you always run the risk of taking something off or burnishing something or making something shiny or smooth with that. If you take that cotton rag and sort of just burnish the whole door like you're wiping it down, but dry, a lot of those paint chips will actually come off. If you have a particularly bad area of that, what you can basically do is take like a mouse sander or a random orbital sander and fold up about 4 layers of cotton, wrap it around that sander, and then the mechanical action of that sander, you're almost buffing the door, but that will remove some of the tough paint chips. If you want to keep that rustic look, it's not going to be perfect. If you want absolutely no, if this is the substrate of the door and all the chips kind of peel up at different angles, if you want none of this, you're basically going to have to take a random orbital sander with a very, very fine grit and kind of go over the door. You're going to change the appearance slightly, but you're going to kind of, round off all those edges there, and they're going to sit better so that they won't catch on your clothing, things like that. Like I said, 2 options then, well actually 3. You can do nothing, which is always a great option. It saves time and money. But you can do a film forming finish. And how much shine in that film forming finish depends on what you want it to look like. The most straight down the middle, easy thing to do is take a satin oil varnish or a polyurethane, just apply 2 coats. Sanding in between coats to promote adhesion. It'll stick to almost all that old paint. If there's any question, find a little side on one of the strike side or the jam side or the hinge side, and do a little test and just see if you can scratch the varnish off after 24 hours. If you don't want that shiny look, there is a specialized decorator product called Dead Flat Varnish. There's a whole bunch of companies that sell it. The thinking is, when you do a decorative finish on a wall inside of a house, the material that you use, whether it's lime plaster or acrylic plaster or art colorants, things like powdered pigments, if they get wet or if you touch them a lot, they're going to change the appearance. So what you can do is take this dead flat varnish, which is basically just varnish with a whole bunch of that chalky flattening agent in it, and apply a coat or 2, and without changing the appearance, it'll be dead flat, it'll be varnished, but it looks no different than the original finish. You're going to have to apply a little bit more of this stuff. It may take 3 coats depending on how much you want it to build, but that will actually sort of lock in a lot of that stuff. So if you can use oil products, that'd be the best. A lot of these dead flat varnishes that I've seen recently are water-based, because a lot of the decorative finishes are going to water-based. That I think more of, you can use the treatment for both that entry door that has the peeling paint and the barn doors. Now the barn doors, very weathered gray woods, traces of red paint on there. If you don't want that to lose its dirt in the house or sliver or something like that, you're going to have to soak it with that stuff, because it is going to take many, many coats of even just a traditional satin oil varnish to build those pores up in that kind of weathered wood to where you can actually form a film. One thing you can do to stabilize it is use a product called shellac. Shellac is an alcohol-based extract from a bug, actually, in the eastern part of the world. They take this extract from this bug, they grind it up, they put it in a solution of alcohol, and then they can do additives and things like that. But basically, it dries almost instantly. The only downside is it's gloss. They have de-waxed versions of it where they remove the natural wax from the bug extract to do that. It's a quick way if you want to seal up a ton of wood. And as a matter of fact, there's a lot of wood stabilizer products that they sell for outdoors. Some of those products are actually just shellac. They basically, because they're alcohol-based, they're thin like rubbing alcohol with a little bit of resin in it. And all of that can penetrate down into the wood, and it dries almost instantly, so it locks in a lot of that stuff. So if you're worried in this dead flat varnish, if you want to use that for your finish and have a flat finish on this, it's going to be expensive, and you can only usually get it in a quart, maybe a gallon if you go up to Hirschfield's in the cities or something. But what you can do is do all the preliminary work with this shellac. And I can get that, less than a mile from my house for relatively inexpensive, and just lay it on. If you can spray it on, spray it. If not, get a roller. If you brush, you may agitate a lot of the dirt and the grain. You just lay it on there as thick as you can until you build like a critical mass of it. And then once you've built that mass, then you can go over with the dead flat varnish and modify the gloss of it like that. So I hope that helps out. Again, you can do nothing. That's always an option. You can go the standard oil varnish route, or if you're really critical about the shine of it, the dead flat varnish. That's a good thing. So Ryan, thanks again. Ryan actually submitted a question a couple months ago about a table that he built from reclaimed wood. He built the whole structure underneath, got everything plain, done, and he submitted a finished picture through the Ask a Painter page, and it is amazing. It's a wonderful, wonderful table. And he followed the instructions kind of like my table here that I did with reclaimed wood. And the finish is just fabulous. You can see that beautiful satin finish on the top. And I'll be curious to talk to Ryan in the future and see how that holds up for his family. But a true craftsman, and I know he'll do something really cool with these doors here too in his new house. So next question here. Jacob writes in, I have a question. Finishing up some Adirondack chairs made out of cedar. They're going to sit on the deck that I use with an occasional overnight, but primarily folded up and stored in a deck box out of the elements. I was originally going to paint them, but as I have assembled them, would like to be able to see the underlying wood. Thoughts about clear polyurethane. Thought about clear polyurethane, but I'm leaning towards a spar varnish now. Also, thanks again to Kevin Kalmus, a guy who I shook the hand of less than a week ago at the PDC Expo. Thank you for the mug, sir. Okay, so most polyurethane varnish, spar varnish, marine varnish, helmsman, those are all names that are tossed around for basically clear varnishy finishes that are used outside. Deck stains are more of a penetrating finish. They have colors, they have pigments, they have resins, but they're not made to form a film. If this is your deck, they're made to go inside the wood and incorporate and impart a little pigment and a little bit of UV protection, but not supposed to make a film. When you're talking about exterior varnishes, a lot of those words are used interchangeable, but they're basically, just like you would varnish wood inside a house, that's the equivalent for the outside stuff. Pros and cons of this. If you do a perfect paint job on these Adirondack chairs the first time, you will get many years of service out of those, especially if you're packing them away and putting them out of the sun. Rain and UV will kill any exterior finish. I used to think rain was more of an issue, but now I know UV is more of an issue. It chemically breaks down a coating, exposing the pigment, and then it fades. That's how fading occurs. If you do a perfect paint job, prep the wood, wash the wood, sand the wood, oil primer, 2 coats of a really, really good exterior enamel, you will get lots of years of service out of there with minimal touch-ups. If you go to straight spar varnish, exterior polyurethane, any sort of exterior oil varnish thing, you'll have to do it. Some of these manufacturers, some of them say the minimum is 2 coats, and then they want you to put as many as 3, 4, or 5 coats on initially. I think that might be a little overkill. But if you go the clear route, you will need to do probably yearly or bi-yearly maintenance, which means every 2 years you would probably have to get out there, wash them, scuff them up a bit, and put another coat on. The pros are the look. I'm a big fan of clear wood finishes outside, but I understand the maintenance that goes into them, and they do take a lot of work, especially Adirondack chairs. There's so many ins and outs, the bottom, the sides, the this and that. It's a big project, actually, to restore Adirondack chairs. So if you want a painted look, there's only one way to go. You paint them, you get a lot of years of service out of them. Maybe even 3 to 7 years of service before you need to scuff them and recoat them. If you go clear, constant maintenance. There is no difference between outdoor wood projects because they're a chair versus a deck. A deck, if you build a new cedar deck and you want it to look brand new cedar for the rest of time, you will need to get out there and do yearly maintenance at the minimum. And I would even recommend in the first year, maybe even coating it twice, depending on where you live, the season, and what you're using. Obviously, I'm a fan of oil. If you were to paint a deck, you get a lot more years of service out of it, but then you're entering into an equation where you might experience peeling, especially on a deck floor where almost nobody gets underneath that deck and seals the bottom side. So you have a situation where there's bare wood underneath and a complete waterproof coating on top. And you can imagine as it gets humid or the ground thaws in the summer where I am and that moisture migrates through, you're going to get some popping of that coating as the moisture migrates through that wood. So with an Adirondack chair, it's much easier. You can flip it over first, finish the underside, flip it over, do the other side, let it dry overnight, put a second coat of varnish on top. As long as you understand the maintenance that goes into it, it's really, really hard to beat a clear finish outside. It's beautiful, it feels great, it doesn't chalk, any of that stuff. So it's sort of, number one, what do you want it to look like? And number two, after you know ideally what you want it to look like, what type of maintenance regimen are you willing to put up with over the life of these things? So what normally happens with decks and with outdoor furniture is people do the right thing first, they get what they want, and then they wait 5 to 7 years to the point where it needs to be completely restored. It's human nature. I don't have the I'm not privileged enough to get decks, usually on yearly maintenance. I have a couple of my customers who follow my maintenance regimen and do very good, and their decks, are better for it. But when people call me is when they've done maintenance for a whole bunch of years. Oh, maybe it's lapsed 3 years, give or take, and now it's time to do a full restoration or bring it back to something that they can keep working on. So that's normally where I get it, and I'm happy to do that stuff. But I just know human nature. It's very, very difficult to get out every year, wash, sand, prep, and stain the deck, and work it in on your free time. So kind of is what it is. So Jacob, I hope that answers your question. Number one, figure out what you want it to look like. Number two, what are you willing to put up with? And if you need some specifics, if I was to paint these, there's a bunch of really curious sort of new products coming on the market. I think Fine Paints of Europe have one. Benjamin Moore definitely has one called Grand Entrance, and Sherwin-Williams is possibly coming out with a sort of, it's a very interesting coating. It's an interior-exterior coating. It's a hybrid, so it's a water-oil mix, but it's more of like a really sturdy enamel, a very thick, a very substantive enamel for inside and out. And they're usually couched as or marketed as entry door paint. I believe Benjamin Moore's offering is even called Grand Entrance. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see what comes of these. I actually have a few of these products in my shop. I'm doing some testing on them now to see how I can best use them. But in the day where all my good traditional oil products are disappearing, I love this new. We want the benefit of the old oil. We want to make it as highly technologically advanced as we can. Combine those together. It's good for the earth. We still get a good finish. It's easy on the painter. So I will let you guys know specifically what I think about these products. But those products intrigue me because they give you the protection of an oil, but they're easy to apply. They're easy on the environment, and they're not just a traditional latex house paint, something like that. It's more of a fine furniture or trim enamel that you can use for that. So, Jacob, look into something like that. If you can't get any of that stuff yet, or it's too expensive for the particular project, a very, very good exterior, I would go the highest end Sherwin or Benjamin Moore or Valspar has to offer of at least a satin paint and at least 100% acrylic if you can get it. And if you want to go semi-gloss, that's fine. It's a little bit tougher to find semi-gloss exterior paints now, and they don't cover as well. So if you're going to paint it, prime it with oil primer, but tint the oil primer to your final, as close you can to the final color. Scuff sand it, shop vac it off in between, and then apply at least 2 coats of an exterior 100% acrylic, at least satin paint. If you're going to do a clear finish on it, my sort of go-to right now, and again, my philosophy with all this stuff, there are tons of good products, and I'm sure I could fly something in from Germany that would be just phenomenal. When I try to give these recommendations, I try to use products that are readily available, relatively inexpensive, and available to everybody who could possibly see this. So I circle around the big, 4, 5, or 6 manufacturers. Right now, Minwax Helmsman is still a very, very good product. The formula has changed in the past 2 years to more of a polyurethane, but it still holds up really, really well. It's a thick coating. It's got a long open time. It's more reminiscent of a traditional oil. It has changed, but it gives a beautiful, beautiful satiny finish on there. Some other really good products, if you can get Sikkens. Sikkens is an excellent, excellent product. Old Masters has some great stuff too. As long as it's oil, as long as it's something of a very high quality, it should be good. Sikkens has a particular, they do a lot of architectural stuff like penetrating stains and light film forming finishes, but they have a door and window product which is basically just like a outdoor wood varnish and super tough. I did a custom cedar garage door, I don't know, 5-6 years ago with I think 2 coats. It could have even been 3, but that sucker looks as good as the day I put it on, and it's exposed to the elements over on a blacktop driveway. So phenomenal product, easy to work with. None of them are really fast drying, but you know, it is what it is when you're using oil. The benefits of using an oil will outweigh the time you have to wait between coats. So Jacob, hope that helps. The next 2 questions I kind of put in tandem. They kind of go over the same thing. Kristen Schroers, a friend from New Prague here. Hi Nick, what are your best tips on painting a house with an open floor plan? It has 9-foot ceilings as well as lots of light. Trim is knotty alder with a very light stain. I've been told to stick to neutrals on the walls and use your pops of color in your home decor. I like warm wall colors, so I'm hesitant to look into the cool colors which are popular now. What are your thoughts when painting a house with an open floor plan? And I'm going to couple it together with this one because the advice is usually similar for these 2. Jenny Skluzacek, she writes in, hi there, I'm looking to paint my whole upstairs. I'm really having a hard time picking out color. It's a Rambler right now and it's a flat brown color. I picked a few, but I can't decide. We have light couches. I'm thinking of putting bookcases on either side of the TV to break up a big wall. I've included pictures of this too. The colors are more cream or tan colors. 2 of them are from Benjamin Moore. One is gentle cream and one is Manchester tan. I was thinking of going lighter and sticking to one color. Then, after I've been thinking about these samples, I'm not sure how lighter would look with all the light furniture. What do I do? You see so much white trim online, it's hard to tell with our wood trim what color to use. I'm not sure about deep colors. Okay, so the standard color consultation that I give, you collect a lot of information. You look at the outside of somebody's house when you show up. When you meet them, you take a look on the inside of their house, and you can collect a lot of information about what type of color people they are. For open floor plans, at its simplest form, my normal recommendation is most of the people I work for have some combination of kids, pets, some of both in the house. And when I paint a house, you don't want to have these people have to repaint it a couple of years later because of the wear and tear and for other, for the picking the wrong color, things like that. There's a way to alleviate a lot of wear and tear in these houses when you have a young, active family. By picking a certain type of color in a certain bandwidth. Normally, on an open floor plan, I usually suggest, and I tell this to all my clients, the color advice I give you is basically a statistical analysis of everybody I've ever worked for. So when I say, I've seen this, that advice will work for 80% of my customers. What I have to do during this color consultation is figure out if those people are in that 20% of the outliers. I mean, you can see my house here. I have 2 colors of coral in my entryway, and the outside of my house is orange. I'm an outlier. I don't want to give the 80% advice to somebody like me because they'll feel like they've missed out on something, or they're not achieving the full, their house is not going to achieve what it possibly could with colors. So I don't want to leave those people out, but I have to sense if those are the people, because suggesting an orange exterior for most of my customers, 80%, would not work. So what I normally say in the classic 3-room combination of kitchen, dining, and living room, and some combination of stairs up, stairs down, things like that, back hall, start your color consultation or start picking your colors in the big main area. For the longest life of a paint, you're not going to get the most shock value, but for the longest life of a paint, pick a mid-range neutral. Doesn't have to be super light, doesn't have to be super dark, but there's a band of colors. If you take the average, Benjamin Moore thing here, some popular colors here, you paint your walls the lightest, it's going to show premature wear and tear. You paint your walls darker, and it will definitely show wear and tear. I mean, that's basically your chalkboard effect. If you touch this, you will leave a light fingerprint on it. There's a sweet spot in here. Usually on this card, it would be maybe these 3, maybe into the fourth. That seems a little dark for me, but if you basically take these three colors here, these colors have the best chance of that card of lasting the longest for durability reasons. The natural nature of dirt is just that color. It will hide more of that sort of wear and tear. Knuckle drags, kids putting their hands on the wall, animals leaning up against the wall, just the natural wear and tear of a house. It also has the benefit of being fairly neutral, so it has the potential to have the longest life. If you paint your stairs, your very steep, high stairwell, burgundy, not only will it show premature wear and tear, there's a good chance that 3 years from now you're either going to be sick of the color or it's going to be not in vogue anymore and you're going to want to repaint. If you paint your stairwell a neutral-ish tan, taupe, or gray, there's a very good chance that you can extend that out 10, 15 years, maybe even 20 years if you can keep it in good shape and then just decorate around it. So I always think about economy, and I always think about the next paint job that these people are going to do. And if we can push that out as far as we can, if we can give the most visual interest for the longest amount of time to people, that's about the best you can do with that. Now, the downside of this is that you might end up with a lot of neutral walls. Well, that's where accent walls come in. And over my years of doing this, I've created a sort of theory to help guide people on accent colors. Number one, people always ask me, do people do that anymore? And yes, all the time. Every room in my house has an accent wall. Mine just happened to be the ceiling. Because I have picture rail, I can do my ceilings in a different color like this. Every room in my house has an accent wall. So I'm obviously a proponent, but in the right places. The guidelines I usually lay forth are three of them. Number one, a perfect when trying to see if you can have an accent wall in your house. When you meet all three of these criteria, you get the best candidate for an accent wall. Number one, if it's a natural focal point of the room. When you think about a bedroom, you think about the headboard wall. Naturally draws the eye. It's usually symmetrical. There's usually two side tables and a headboard. You want there to be two inside corners. So again, you think about your average bedroom. Two walls terminate in. The walls turn into the back of the headboard. You can start and stop a color at those inside corners. You're not wrong if you terminate a color at an outside corner, but it looks more formal and more sophisticated when you terminate it on an inside corner, and two of them if you can. And number three, symmetry. If you can have symmetry in it, it always looks better. Some of the problems with these open floor plans is, especially if there's a vault, you run into some of these asymmetrical ceiling meetings. Some things are way asymmetrical, and if you pick a very dark color for an accent wall, a burgundy, a chocolate brown, almost blackish gray, you're gonna have that color juxtaposed against a pure white ceiling with this, and all you're gonna notice is this crazy angle. Or some of the worst things to decorate around are ceiling comes up and a tab of wall comes over and it terminates and it doesn't connect to anything else. And if you paint that a super dark color approaching black, all you're gonna see when you walk by is that finger, that tab sticking out across the wall, or a soffit that doesn't return to itself or something. So. The three criteria when I walk through a house, it's sort of as formulaic as you can get decorating. Find the natural focal point. Does it have two inside corners, or three, depending on the angles of the walls? And is it a natural, two inside corners then? So, and symmetrical. So basically, if you have all of those, there's always outliers that don't work like that, but those are basically the criteria to pick a wall. Now, depending on the colors you pick, you may want one accent wall, or you may want to kind of dabble the accents throughout. One of the very common home plans in our area has a pantry in the kitchen that actually comes out in a three-sided wall like this. I like to accent those because they're sort of a piece onto themselves. They're almost like a turret in an old Victorian house. People do bays a lot. I'm not a fan of doing the bays, especially if the two walls, they come in at a 45 and then you have a patio door or something. Terminating those colors on an outside corner, and especially a weird kind of 45 or a 30 or something like that, is never as sophisticated as when you have a pure square bump out on a house and all you do is accent the back portion of that wall. A lot of people like to do the returns. I'm not a big fan just because of my inside corner stuff like that. And again, it's color dependent. If you have cream walls and you want a really rich burgundy accent, you have to be much more careful where you start and stop. If you were to pick, one of these here, and normally I say skip one and go to here for an accent, it's a little more subtle. You're picking two neutral colors. They're not that far apart. You can start and stop in maybe an area that would be questionable. You can kind of push it through that area, and it won't distract the eye. I should mention too that, you know, especially when picking colors like this, I usually skip one, and on some of these cards, it's real dependent. Once you know, every card, these aren't equivalent. The third color on every card is not going to be the same equivalent of depth or deepness or tone. So on a card like this, if you did these two colors next to each other, you'd never tell the difference. If you did these two, it would be very, very subtle, but you'd still probably be able to tell the difference. You know, if you went down here, now these are very disparate. You know, you'll definitely see the color there. So I hope that helps. Kristen and Jenny, both you guys were looking like you show interest in the grays, but you might not be the gray type of people. One interesting thing that I've been doing, and especially for people that aren't ready to make the leap into, you know, pure white trim, steel gray walls, there's a bunch of colors that I technically call taupe. The halfway between tan and gray, where they mix in the middle, that sweet spot is taupe. So they're cooler browns, they're warmer grays, and depending on how far you push either one, it'll be more gray or more brown. A couple of the colors, if Jenny, I think you're going for more of, you know, I had a Manchester tan out here before. I think that's the one you were looking at. Let's see if I can find that guy. Yeah, Manchester tan. This one here. Yeah, that's a great color. And you were wondering about, you know, one of the first bridges I cross in a color consultation is, you know, you can kind of get a feel for the house, whether they're averse to color or not. A lot of people right off the bat, you can tell, I mean, there's a definite scheme to the house. There's very bright, vibrant colors here and there. Their furnishings are bright. Most people don't surprise you if you get a lay of the land like that. The first bridge I cross with people is, do you want the walls to be the color, or do you want the stuff to be the color? In my first house, this one here, didn't have a lot of furniture, so we went crazy with color. We didn't have a lot of interesting things to look at, art, things like that. So you go crazy with the color, and you know, that takes the place of it. If you have a bunch of interesting furniture, if you have some very distinct art pieces, you want to basically make the walls into a backdrop for that stuff. And Manchester tan, there's almost no better color as far as the warm sort of neutrals go, the puttyish kind of, you know, tapioca colors like that. That'll be a great backdrop if you have a bunch of interesting things to look at. I would not be worried about the light furniture and things like that. Nowadays, you know, gone is sort of grandma's front room, where it's got white carpet, white walls, white furniture, and it's got a rope across. You can't go in. Themed rooms, rooms with a distinct color are just sort of no more. Everybody has such a mosaic. You know, we have reclaimed wood, we have antiques, we got some new stuff, we got art, we got pictures, we got colorful things to hang, stained glass, modern fixtures. It all becomes like a mosaic if you mix the colors and the textures enough. So. You know, the thing that you need to figure out during these color consultations too, is that person going for a stark sort of, you know, a Swedish kind of Norwegian look to their house too? Then you want neither. Their stuff isn't going to have a lot of color, and the paint shouldn't have a lot of color either. Some people like that sort of, you know, just slimmed down, minimalist sort of look, and you have to clue into that. And some people, you know, I've done entire main floors of houses in road cone orange, and the people were over the moon, you know, so it's any and all between. So I hope that helps out with the color. With my color consultations, I never tell people, use this color, put it here. I don't charge for my color consultations, and that's what assuages my conscience at the end of the night, because if a color goes bad, it's a failure of sort of me and the homeowner. And really, I'd say 99% of the colors work out, but it's probably more like 1 in 200 if we follow this distinct color process, where we initially talk about color during the estimate. I come back for the formal consultation. The homeowner then does samples, sees it at night and during the day, and maybe 1 out of 200 still doesn't work out, where the homeowner's just like, you know, it's just not what I expected. That 3-step process solves almost all the color issues. It does get harder when people are going for something distinct. If you're doing historic restoration with 14 colors outside, there's a lot more time that needs to be put into that sort of thing, because there's so many moving parts. If you're doing a base and an accent inside of a house, it's a little bit more easy, because most people don't land on the outlier portion of that. So yeah, I hope that helps out with all the colors here. I'm going to scroll through and see what everybody's up to, and call it a Friday. I'm actually on. I got one of my crews over in a neighboring town doing some standard interior repaints, doing a lot of the stuff we just talked about. You know, with the big vaulted wall. I helped the homeowners pick an accent wall. It happened to be a huge gabled wall. It had perfect symmetry, 2 inside corners, and it was a natural focal point. Their TV happened to be anchored on it. So putting those theories kind of into practice. Let's see what else we got. I got one of my guys too on a farmhouse that's being renovated. The owner was nice enough to call me and say, hey, there's this 1920s farmhouse, all surviving fir woodwork, original finish. We don't want it. We're getting it out of there. I have one of my guys stripping that house down right now, and we're going to salvage all that, bring it out to my shop, and then we'll use it in one of my future projects. So it's nice to find all that surviving stuff. And thank you to him who kind of sought me out because of, he knows I'm a lover of old stuff. And we're going to save this stuff and actually put it into a house and put it to its intended purpose. So Joyce, thank you for watching. David, my friend. You might be laid up on the couch right now. I don't normally see you watching. Dave's a park ranger. He's got the best job on earth, and he's watching now, so he must be laid up today. Anna, thank you so much for watching. Hey, my wife watches this stuff. I better watch. Everything looks good here, Toots. Still got a little bit of lunch left on the table, but otherwise, house looks awesome. Thank you, Tom. Tom, thanks for your interaction this last week. It was good to talk with you about some projects. And Matt McHugh, thanks for watching, my friend. Tom, excellent color advice. Graves have been so popular and can go in many different ways with different color tones. Oh, I should mention too that I get a lot of questions on, hey, I want that new look. I want what everybody's doing right now. And I can't tell you specific colors because your personality is going to dictate it one way or another. But if you want a good place to start, there is Sherwin-Williams. Go to knitting needles and just go left, go right, go up, go down. That's a good place to start. Benjamin Moore. If you're going Benjamin Moore, probably the most popular colors right now are going to be, this card here, 1544 and surrounding. We're going Plymouth Rock, Waynesboro Taupe, and Iron Gate and all that other stuff like that. There's another wonderful card right next to it that's a little more gray, La Paloma gray, and all the surrounding colors. And I find those to be neutral enough that they work with basically any floor, any sort of woodwork, any sort of decoration that people have. There's much more edgy colors. A lot of them have a little bit of green or ochre kind of in them, but those are great places to start. Don't just take those colors. You got to do some samples. You got to see them in different light. Natural light will push a color, as well as any sort of man-made light. And the farthest extent of that will be natural light in the middle of the day, natural light at night, and then if you have compact fluorescent, which isn't very popular anymore, that'll give a very cool light, incandescent light, and now we go into LEDs. We go into all this other stuff. So you have to be very careful to see the light see the color in the specific light of the room there. So David gave me something to do for a half hour, 4 weeks into a broken ankle. Oh man, so I got a definite viewer there for at least a couple more weeks. So Dave, if you have any questions, Dave and I have done some projects together before, and we painted his daughter's room years ago. So Dave's a good painter, just not right now with the bum legs. So Starlet, thank you for watching. Dave, we're really happy with starting with Waynesboro Taupe and the bait. Yeah, Dave, you just did a whole basement remodel with some of these colors here too. So Dave has some firsthand experience with all this new kind of color palette, and yeah, they're really sharp colors. So, well, guys, I got to get back to my crew here. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you all for the questions, for the comments, things like that. If you're interested about some of the last Ask a Painters we did, a really interesting one. The first time I've ever had somebody else on Ask a Painter was actually in San Diego at the PDCA Expo, the Painting and Decorating Contractors of America. And pros were asking pros questions, so it was really cool. If you ever want to know what the inside of a professional painter's head looks like, it's not pretty, but it's interesting. So that's the place where number 38, if you want to see that. That was a very, 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 very interesting session right there. So thank you to all the pros. Thank you to all the homeowners. Happy Friday, everyone. And send me any of your questions or topic suggestions that you have for next week. We'll talk to you later, guys. Have a good weekend.